The founder and visionary of Citizens Trust Bank was Mr. Heman Perry. Before launching Citizens Trust Bank, Perry founded Standard Life Insurance Company in 1913. 2 years after its founding, Standard Life had $2 million in insurance and $245,000 in assets. 7 years later, those figures swelled to $22 million and $2 million respectively. The company employed 2,500 people, all African American, and did 33.33% of the total volume of business done in the United States annually by black enterprises. By 1921, Standard Life had grown to become the largest black insurance company in America. With Standard Life on sound, profitable footing, Perry turned to providing other business and economic services to the black community. In 1919, Perry and 4 other foresighted men envisioned a bank that would primarily serve the black citizens of Atlanta. Determined to provide access to capital so that black businessmen could own their own and operate independently of white-owned companies, these fervent 5, led by Perry as the chairman, James A. Robinson as secretary, Tom J. Ferguson, William H. King, and Henry C. Dugas, pooled their time, money, and resources to provide a bank which would offer its customers improved financial security. On August 16, 1921, the doors of Citizens Trust Bank opened on Sweet Auburn Avenue. Perry served as the first chairman of the board, and H.C. Dugas was the first bank's president. The first slogan of the bank was, "Bank where you feel at home." The early years of Citizens Trust were ones of excitement, pride, and joy. Customers eagerly lined up to make deposits of their hard-earned money into a bank where they could call their own. During this period, Citizens Trust Company was instrumental in the development of housing and communities in Atlanta. The bank built 200 homes with baths, electric lights, paved streets, and water while offering easy terms. Citizens Trust executives also exhibited a spirit of community as well. On February 16, 1923, a disastrous fire took place at the Big Bethel Church next door from the bank. It was reported that the fire caused $300,000 in damages to the facility. The bank was quick to respond in lending its helping hand to the church, its pastor, and membership. The bank was instrumental in helping with the fundraising activities that eventually led to the reconstruction of the church. At the pinnacle of his success, the founder of Citizens Trust was featured in Forbes magazine in the February 2, 1924 edition. The headline read, "The largest Negro commercial enterprise in the world, the amazing story of Heman E. Perry." On March 27, 1924, Alonzo Mills Wilkins became the second president of Citizens Trust Company. He previously had served 2 years as vice president of the company and took over after Henry Dugas. On December 31, 1926, Mr. Wilkins ascended to the chair's seat, and Dr. Henry Holmes had become president. In 1928, Dr. Holmes retired as president, and A.T. Walden became the 4th president of Citizens Trust. Surviving the severe economic depression of the late 1920s and the early 1930s was a challenge for Citizens Trust Company. Many banks closed during this period, never to open again, but Citizens Trust Company survived during the bank crisis. In early 1929, the Director of Banking and Finance of the State of Georgia Department, A.B. Mosley, offered Citizens Trust the opportunity to be the state's depository for the funds of failed banks in the state. With the economy softening, banks began failing at record numbers. The bank agreed and became the depository for failed banks in the state of Georgia. This show of confidence by the State Department of Banking was a testament to the respect that Citizens Trust had earned from its regulators. When Franklin Roosevelt started his first term in the White House in 1933, he inherited a nation in the depths of the Depression. On March 5, 1933, the day after being sworn into office, Roosevelt stepped in and declared a bank holiday, which for 4 days forced the closure of the nation's banks and halted all financial transactions. The holiday not only helped stem the frantic run of banks that was occurring, but gave Roosevelt time to push the Emergency Banking Act through the legislature chain. Passed by Congress on March 9, 1933, the act handed the president a far-reaching grip over banks' dealings and foreign transactions. The legislature also paved the path for solvent banks to resume business as early as March 10, 1933. Citizens Trust was one of the first banks to reopen. The bank had received resounding expressions of confidence during the closure period from its customers. On January 28, 1938, A.T. Walden resigned as president of the bank in order to perform the bank's legal work. L.D. Milton was elected president of the bank. Walden remained on the board and served as general counsel. For the second time in less than 50 years, the world was thrusted into another world war. The Allies this time must fight dictators in Germany, Italy, and Japan. Initially, the United States managed to maintain its neutrality. However, events at Pearl Harbor swayed public opinion, and Americans joined the war efforts to restore the balance of power. Everyone supported the United States' involvement, especially Citizens Trust Company. In June of 1941, the Secretary of Treasury extended an invitation to the president of the bank, Mr. Milton, to assist in the marketing of defense bonds nationally. It was considered a significant honor to the bank and to Mr. Milton. During this time, the bank continued in the spirit of Heman Perry by developing and financing the Hunter Road subdivision on Atlanta's west side in conjunction with the Federal Housing Authority. The bank continued its service to the community while finding it difficult to maintain staff jobs due to defense jobs in Washington absorbing the bank's junior officers. Beginning in the summer of 1944 and continuing through 1945, the bank began growing rapidly. The bank now had assets of $2.3 million when it only had $400,000 a few years earlier. Finally, after 25 years in 1947, Citizens Trust Bank was asked to become the first African-American-owned bank in the United States to become a member of the Federal Reserve Bank. A few years earlier, Citizens Trust Bank had become the first African-American-owned bank to become a member of the FDIC. Now they stood 26 years after the idea was first mentioned in the first shareholders meeting. Citizens Trust Company became the first black-owned bank to become a member of the Federal Reserve System in October of 1948. In October of 1954, Citizens Trust Company's management made a film entitled Partners in Progress. This film was made in order that the history and relevance of Citizens Trust Bank be chronicled for all time. The bank began investing in the development of subdivisions throughout southwest Atlanta. Just as Heman Perry developed the black community 30 years earlier, Milton and his management team also had its place in providing housing in new communities that would become one of the most affluent areas for African Americans in the country. Also during the 1950s, two legendary African American icons joined the board of directors. Dr. Benjamin E. Mays, president of Morehouse College, and Reverend Martin Luther King Sr. also joined to help chart the bank's course through the turbulent 1950s and 1960s. Under the tenure of Mr. L.D. Milton, the construction of a 12-story Citizens Trust Bank building was completed. In 1971, Citizens Trust Company became Citizens Bancshares Corporation, a holding company and parent company of Citizens Trust Bank. The organizational change was spearheaded in September 1971 by the bank's new president and CEO, Charles McKinley Reynolds. When Mr. Reynolds replaced the retiring L.D. Milton as the bank's new chief executive, Citizens Trust was one of the largest African American-owned commercial banks in the country, with some $32 million in assets. By the year's end, the newly formed Citizens Trust Bank had assets of over $34 million and agreed to the purchase of the Atlanta Mortgage Brokerage and Servicing Company. This move allowed the bank to become more competitive in the mortgage origination and servicing business. Mr. Reynolds also expanded the bank's branch network, which was the first expansion since the 1950s. The Adamsville branch was authorized by resolution of the Board of Directors on December 22, 1971. The branch was opened in 1972 at the intersection of Gordon and Fairburn Road. In 1975, I. Owen Funderburg became the bank's president. Under his leadership, the bank opened in-store branches, installed ATMs, and brought the technology of the bank into a new era. Funderburg doubled operations from approximately $60 million to over $100 million. During the Funderburg administration, the bank was named as 1985 Bank of the Year by Black Enterprise magazine.
For nearly 2 decades under Owen Funderburg, Citizens Trust Bank has cut its losses, turned a healthy profit, and become a major competitor in the banking industry.
He saved the bank.
In Owen Funderburg, they found in him one who had the experience, one who had made a profit where he was, and therefore they looked for him to come to Citizens Trust Bank when we needed him most, turn it around give us a profit so that we could return dividends to the stockholders. I would call Owen Fundenberg the godfather of banking.
In 1974, Citizens Trust Bank had lost $1.5 million, but in 1975, with Owen as president and CEO and Herman Russell as chairman of the board, the 80s were indeed the decade of prosperity.
Nobody will ever imagine the importance of Citizens Trust Bank and Owen Fundenberg because he's quiet. He's very seldom controversial, a little brusque every now and then, and he'll tell it like it is, whether you like it or not. But he's been a very, very important part of this community for quite a while.
Well, I think Owen has been a very enthusiastic supporter of all the community activities that have been undertaken by the Chamber, Central Atlanta Progress, and also the Action Forum, and he's been in the forefront of all of those efforts.
Citizens Trust Bank has always been in the forefront of the struggle for desegregation. And they helped us develop a real estate industry. They helped us to build some beautiful churches. That led the way to the civil rights movement and to my being in politics. But when Owen came, we were getting into the most important part of the civil rights movement, and that is integrating the money.
In 1998, Citizens Trust Bank merged with First Southern Bank of Lithonia, Georgia, and kept the name Citizens Trust Bank of Atlanta. Mr. James Young became president and chief executive officer in this merger. Citizens Trust Bank gained 3 additional branches in the DeKalb County area through this merger. Also added to the family the former American Financial Mortgage Services, which was acquired by First Southern Bank in 1994. It is now named Citizens Trust Bank Mortgage Services Incorporated. In 1999, Citizens Trust Bank offered its stock on the public market. Its ticker symbol is CZBS. Also in 1999, Citizens Trust Bank began airing television commercials to increase its exposure in the Atlanta metropolitan community.
Do you wonder why those big out-of-state banks are in so many places? It's for deposit gathering. That means they take your money from here and ship it somewhere else for loans to build businesses and towns in other states and time zones. So if you really want to support your community, one place to start is where you bank. That's an excellent reason to put your money where you see this sign.
There is a bank that has been serving the Metro Atlanta community for more than 3/4 of a century. Over the years, this bank has financed many businesses, homes, and churches in Metro Atlanta. This bank is a proven partner in the economic growth of our community. This bank stands ready to give you sound financial advice. This bank is Citizens Trust Bank, your community full-service bank. On Monday, March 13th, Citizens Trust Bank announced that it had assumed all the deposits and assets of the former Mutual Federal Savings Bank. The acquisition will serve to enhance Citizens Trust Bank assets by some $30 million, thereby increasing its total assets to approximately $250 million. On June 16th, Citizens Trust Bank opened a new full-service branch on Cascade Road. The new branch serves as yet another example of the bank's commitment to providing quality financial service to Atlanta's communities. As a token of appreciation to the Cascade area residents, the bank waived a year of monthly service charges for all new checking account customers. The first order of checks were free, and all new customers were offered a special discount on loan fees and other incentives. On November 17th, Citizens Trust Bank celebrated the grand opening of its 13th location at 611th Street in Columbus, Georgia's historic downtown district. The new location demonstrates the bank's commitment to providing quality financial service to all of the residents in Columbus.
It's a historical day in Columbus as the community's first African-American bank opens its doors. The Citizens Trust Bank held its grand opening at its 11th Street and Broadway location this morning. The bank is African-American owned and operated, but the branch manager says they will serve the needs of the entire community.
We hope to give all citizens more economic empowerment, more equity in their community. We want to make sure that all citizens are served, all of their financial needs are met, not just African Americans, everyone.
Citizens Bank is based in Atlanta.
Today, after several decades of meeting a variety of banking needs, Citizens Trust Bank is a proven partner in the economic growth of our community. The bank's customer base extends well beyond individuals and small business persons to include major corporations and not-for-profit organizations. Whether the customer is a young entrepreneur applying for a first-time loan or a large corporation client looking to expand its banking relationships, Citizens Trust Bank stands ready to give sound financial advice within a professional yet personal atmosphere. Citizens Trust Bank, a bank that cares. A bank you can trust. A bank that's been there. Partners in the community since 1921.